Welcome to Impact OC, the only program showcasing the people and organizations shaping Orange County. With your host, Don Camber.
Hello, live from the OC Talk Radio studios at UCI's Beal Applied Innovation Center. I'm OC Talk Radio Public Affairs Director Don Camber with another great guest impacting our community in a positive way. Today, I welcome Orange County Registrar of Voters Bob Page. The 2022 California general election is November 8th. Bob runs the election in Orange County, which is the nation's fifth largest voting jurisdiction. His office's mission is to provide election services for the citizens of Orange County to ensure equal access to the election process, protect the integrity of votes, and maintain a transparent, accurate, and fair process. Thank you, Bob, for being on Impact OC.
And Don, thank you for having me today to be able to talk about how voting is easy and secure in Orange County.
Well, Bob, please go over the process that's underway to ensure Orange County voters will have an election that is fair and accurate.
Well, thank you, Don. Right now, at the Registrar of Voters office, we are preparing county voter information guides and ballots for mailing. The voter information guides are scheduled to go out later this week, by the end of the week, and ballots are scheduled to be mailed to all active registered voters on October 10th.
Voter registration deadline.
Yes. So anybody who's currently actively registered to vote will receive a ballot, but if someone is not currently registered or if they have moved recently and want to update their registration, they can do so online or with a paper affidavit by October 24th, which is 15 days before Election Day.
Explain the vote by mail process.
So as I mentioned, every voter will get a ballot mailed to them. But every voter has a choice about how they actually cast that ballot, how they return it. So you have the option of either marking that ballot, putting it back in the return envelope, signing it, and putting it in the mail. The county pays for the return postage. Or we have 121 ballot drop boxes that are installed and located throughout the county that will be open starting October 10th, and you can drop your ballot in one of those. We also will have 181 vote centers where you can drop off a mail ballot in its envelope. Or if you want to vote in person with a live ballot, you can come to our vote centers as well. And those will have 181 vote centers that open 10 days before the election. That Saturday, the prior weekend, we'll have about 37, and then all of them will be open the Saturday immediately preceding the election day.
And there's a way to track your ballot.
There is. In Orange County, we have a service called OC Ballot Express, which if you go to our website, OCvotegov, you can sign up to track your ballot. You'll receive notifications either by email or text about the status of the mailing your ballot, and once you've returned it, once we have it back in our office.
Now, once upon a time, people would vote in an area if they wanted to, that was on their ballot. Does that not exist anymore?
In Orange County, we have vote centers. As I said, we've got 181 vote centers. A voter is not assigned to a specific vote center. They can vote at any one of the vote centers in our county. They're located at city halls, at churches, different locations, senior centers throughout the county. And you can go to any one. We have electronic voter rosters at each one, so we can look you up. Every single voter will be on that roster, and we'll be able to print the correct ballot type for you no matter where you go.
Explain how you can avoid fraud.
So basically at a certain level, as I mentioned, we're mailing you a ballot. So all voting is done on paper. I know there's some discussion about voting machines and the ability to potentially alter those in some way, but all voting in the state of California is done on paper. There's always a paper ballot, no matter what method you choose. So we'll always have that backup. That's what's counted as the paper. If you go to a vote center and you need assistance, you could potentially vote on a ballot marking device, which allows you to mark a ballot on a touchscreen, but it prints a ballot that's on paper. That was what we actually scan. And so those ballots are all on paper. We always have one for every voter. We're only counting one per voter. And if you mail one back, there is an ID code on each return envelope that's specific to the voter, but the ballot is not specific to the voter. It's specific to the precinct that they live in. And so when those come in, we're tracking the ballot for each voter and marking that they've voted. So if the voter tries to go and vote a second time, say they mail a ballot in and then go to a vote center and try to check in, our electronic roster will show that they've already voted. and tell them that they can't vote again. If they say that they haven't voted, we'll allow them to vote provisionally, and then once we get that back in the envelope, we'll do additional research back in the office and confirm whether or not they've already voted.
You were telling me before we came to air that there was a signature matching situation.
Yeah, so with the mail ballot, part of the process of returning a mail ballot is signing the outside of the return envelope. And when we get those back, we're scanning those images on the return ballot, and we've got staff that are trained to compare signatures based on state regulations and state laws and requirements to determine whether the signatures compare with any signature we have on file for registration of a voter. So that first registration that somebody filled out to the most recent one. So if somebody's re-registered and moved or just re-registered for other reasons, we'll have all those signatures on file and be looking for similarities between the signatures.
When's the last moment they can get a ballot to you?
So the last day for voting is November 8th, Tuesday, November 8th, and 8 p.m. is that deadline. So if a voter wants to return a ballot by mail, they need to make sure that it's postmarked by November 8th. If they want to drop it off at one of our drop boxes at our vote center, they need to make sure they're there by 8 p.m. to drop it off. Or if they want to vote in person, they need to make sure they're in line to vote at a vote center by 8 p.m. on November 8th.
Now tell us the process for that vote to get counted.
So when the mail ballots come back in, well, first, for those people who vote in a vote center with a live ballot, they're marking a paper ballot, and before they're leaving, they're actually feeding it through a ballot scanner. And so it's recording their ballot on that scanner in the vote center, and then the storage device on that scanner is being brought back to our office by two-person teams that are followed by a sheriff's deputy to make sure that comes directly back to us. If you vote by mail, then those envelopes are coming back to us. We're running them through a mail sorter, which takes a picture of the outside of the envelope with a signature. Then that signature is then visible at different workstations in our office where we have up to 12 people at a time reviewing the signatures and comparing it on the screen to the signatures we have on file and making a determination about whether the signatures compare. If the first person doesn't think they compare, it'll go to another level of review. If that second level doesn't believe that the signatures compare, it'll go to a third level. And then once you have 3 people who agree that a signature does not compare, then we will send a notification out to the voter by mail, letting them know that there's an issue with their signature and giving them an opportunity to cure that by signing a statement. And then they have to get those back to us within a certain period of time.
Could that happen after November 8th?
The letter going out them to let them know to cure the signature, yes, that could happen after November 8th.
And therefore, how much time after that is that acceptable for it to count?
So the law is that if we determine that either a mail ballot is missing a signature or that we think that the signatures don't compare, we have to send that notification to the voter at least 8 days before we certify, and the voter is required to get it back to us at least 2 days before. We will put on the letter a date we recommend that they get it back, because at that time we may not know the exact date that we're going to certify. We have up to 30 days to certify, but it just depends on how many ballots we're processing still after Election Day, about what we can get the ballot counting done and get our audits done to be able to certify. So we give them an idea, like we encourage you to get it back by this date, but we really will continue to receive them up until 2 days before we certify.
So when you're getting ballots, you're counting them, you're just not releasing the results until after the deadline.
Correct. So as people are voting early, we are getting those ballots in, we're processing them, and if we find the signatures compare, we will remove those ballots from the mail ballot envelopes, and we'll actually scan them and prepare them for posting. But as you say, the law dictates that I can't post any results until after the polls close on 8 p.m. on November 8th.
So what's the earliest there could be results posted at OCvotegov?
Typically, we try to hit about 8:05 p.m. the first results get posted, that first result report will have just early mail ballots on that we've gotten through the process and actually scanned. And then typically the next posting is about 9:30 once we start getting results back from the vote centers, and then we're posting every half hour till we've posted the results from all vote centers.
And then you have a time that the process starts again the next day.
Correct, yeah. So the focus on election day is processing those in-person ballots that are voted at vote centers, so we can get those published, because we can't go home that night until we've reported the results from all the vote centers. So the focus on election day is getting those in-person votes posted that night and any of the early mail ballots posted. Then we come back the next day and we start what's called the canvass period, which includes continuing to process any mail ballots that were dropped off on election day or that were postmarked by election day and arrive in the mail after that. The post office has up to 7 days to deliver ballots to us that are postmarked on election day. So we're continuing to process mail ballots. Every day that we post, we'll say how many ballots we think we still have left to process, so people get an idea of what's still left to do. Then once we're done having counted all the ballots, then we usually take about 5 or so days to do a number of different tests and audits to make sure that we're confident in the results.
This is your second election in Orange County.
Yeah.
The first time around, was there issues with signatures?
I wouldn't say there were issues. I mean, it ran pretty smoothly. We compare the signatures. We go through the process and follow the law in terms of how to compare those. I wouldn't say that there were any issues, no.
I mean, I'm just curious, were there many people who got the letter they needed to make sure that it was them?
Oh yeah, we definitely. I mean, that's a requirement. So if it's missing a signature, we send that letter out as soon as possible. And if we don't think the signature compares, we send that letter out and give them an opportunity to cure it.
Were there many of those offhand?
I don't remember the exact number off top.
But there were some.
There's some, yeah, definitely.
Explain your rapid deployment teams.
So rapid deployment teams are, while our vote centers are open, we have teams of technical folks out in the field assigned to certain vote centers to be able to quickly respond if a vote center has an issue with some equipment it's not working for some reason. We can have people there quickly in the area that are trained on how to address any kind of technical issues with any of the election equipment.
Explain the information people can get on OCvotegov.
So there's a lot of information. There's information on how to register to vote. There's information on how to observe our processes. There is, as we're starting to post results, obviously the results are posted there, and it'll indicate when the next one's scheduled to be posted. There's like a countdown clock to let you know when our next results will be posted. As I mentioned, we will post, as we're doing results, we'll let people know how many ballots we estimate we still have left to process, and within different categories, like how many ballots we think need to be duplicated because they're damaged or in some way or not marked properly and couldn't be read by the scanners. Or that just are mail ballots that have to still be processed. So that information is available. There's also a lot of information about voting trends in past elections in terms of turnout and different methods of voting. We have a lot of maps on our website in terms of understanding where the different districts are located.
We're in a redistricting situation, so many people need to know who they're voting for so you can get the information from there.
Yeah. So obviously a voter will know who they get to vote for when they get their ballot or their voter information guide, which has a sample ballot in it. But I will share that because of redistricting that occurred at the state level and local level following the 2020 census, we do know that every single voter in Orange County will have at least one new district number that they didn't vote in 2020. It will be new for 2022. So essentially, like for your congressional, your state Senate, state assembly, Board of Equalization contests, there's a citizens committee under the California Constitution that's formed to make those decisions about how to redraw those lines. And then once they've determined how the line should be drawn, then the Constitution requires that they renumber all the districts from 1 at the north down to the last number going south to the south border. So, as they redraw those and things get renumbered, so everybody's going to notice they may be, well, I usually vote in Congressional District 37, but their ballot might have Congressional District 38 on it just because of redistricting.
Now, ballot boxes, I know there were potential issues last year, that's the last time. Mm-hmm. Is there going to be some security measures put in place so that won't happen?
Yeah, we believe that the ballot drop boxes are secure. They're very high grade, thick metal. They're bolted to the concrete. Somebody's not going to be walking away with those. There's a lot of tamper protections to them. They are regularly checked and ballots are retrieved from them on a regular schedule, an ongoing schedule during the voting period. And we typically in Orange County exceed the state requirements that we pick them up every 96 hours. We'll do more frequently than that. And we've got partners where we've partnered with cities and other community organizations to install those boxes, and they're good partners with us, where if they notice any damage to the box, they let us know.
And when someone wants someone else to drop off their ballot, that's totally legal.
Yeah, in California, voters have the ability to authorize any person they want to return their mail ballot. That person who they authorized is then required to sign the envelope as well, and they're required to return it to us within a certain amount of time, within 3 days, or at least by 8 p.m. on election night, depending on when they receive it. What I basically tell voters, if they don't feel that they can return their ballot on their own, is to really pick somebody that they trust to return it, and also to sign up for the ballot tracking I mentioned before, so that they get a message when we've received their ballot.
I mean, could someone in a family just take all the ballots from the family members and go to the post office and mail them?
They could, yeah.
Or they have to sign something?
Well, the law indicates that if you're authorizing your husband to return your ballot, he should sign the envelope. But on my end, if I get a ballot like that from the mail, I'm not going to know that you did that, and if his signature's not there, that's not reason for me to not count your ballot. So on my side, it's not disqualifying to the ballot if the person doesn't sign it, but they are required to do it.
From what you've heard, do you believe we're going to have a good voter turnout?
Typically in general elections, we do have, and we had about 35% in the primary. We typically see a good bump for the general elections, though you'll see the highest turnout typically in a presidential election, and this is a gubernatorial election. So it's going to be somewhere between the 35% and the close to 80% that we had in the presidential general election in 2020.
So something would make it easy on you to get the results quicker. Share with us what that is.
Well, I mentioned this to you before, is that a lot of the reason that we need that time after election day to count the ballots is based on voter behavior in terms of when they return their ballots. So in looking at the trends in 2020 and in the recall election in 2021, we did see a bump in people who were voting early and getting their ballots back early. But in the primary for 2022, we saw kind of behavior going back to what it was prior to the pandemic. And we saw about half of our ballots coming in either in person or by mail on election day or after. So, depending on what the turnout is, the percentage of voters that turn their ballots back in on election day, that will dictate how much work we have to do. Do we need to bring extra people on to process ballots, or move people around to be able to process those things more quickly. But really, that voter behavior is a big indicator in terms of how much time we're going to need. If we get a higher percentage of people voting early, we can start processing ballots starting October 10th as people vote. Because some people, while we mail ballots out on October 10th, some people come to our office and still want to get it that day and vote that day. So, as we start getting ballots on October 10th, we're going to start processing those. And the more that we can get in early and get processed before election day, the less work we have after.
Explain the importance of voting.
Well, at a basic level, right? Everybody has that right to vote and to have a say and have a voice in who represents them in government, who makes those decisions either at a local level or at a state level or a federal level, in terms of how this country and how our city or how our county is governed. So, to me, it's important to vote because I want to be able to have a say in who represents me. I mean, that's the most basic part of our democracy, right? Is having somebody who represents you elected. So to me, that's why it's important to vote. But I also know that each person's going to have their own reasons about why they think it's important. They may come from a family that maybe several decades ago didn't even have the right to vote, so it becomes very personal and important to them. And so I want to make sure that every citizen in Orange County that's eligible to vote, that they know what they need to do to get registered and how to vote, that they have that information, and then it's up to them whether they actually follow through on it.
Now, they have the piece of paper in front of them. How should they approach filling it out in terms of color ink pen or a pencil?
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was like, I can't advise people who to vote for.
No, but you could advise how to fill it out with whatever writing material, please.
Yeah. So we do ask that voters use a blue or black pen or marker, and not use pencil, to make sure that it's easy for our scanners to pick up the marks that they've made. We ask them to fully complete and fill in the squares that are next to the candidate name or the yes or no choice that's in front of them. because that makes it easier for it to scan. If they don't follow instructions, though, the law still says I have to count their ballot, and then we go through a manual process of determining whether the voter consistently marked the ballot the same way. Was their intent clear? So there's a potential to have another human element in determining that, whether there's clear and consistent marks on a ballot, even if they don't follow the instructions. Say somebody decided rather than filling in the squares, they're going to circle the names that they want. The scanner's not going to pick that up because it's looking to see what's in the target in the square, but the person managing the scanner is going to know, okay, this ballot doesn't have a single vote on it. I need to look at it to see what's going on, and they'll see the circles, and then, okay, this person's consistently doing the same thing, and so they resolve the ballot to make sure those votes are counted.
Well, if they make a mistake, what is the process that they could change it on the ballot? Can they cross it out? What can they do?
Well, if they want to go that route, they just need to make sure they're clear in terms of what they're trying to do. But the other option is if they say they're voting early, it's 2 weeks before Election Day, and they've made a mistake, they can request a replacement ballot. They can contact us up until 7 days before Election Day to ask us to mail them a new ballot because they made a mistake or damaged their ballot in some way. Or they could come to one of the vote centers that we have open to get a replacement ballot as well.
What are the requirements to vote?
Essentially 18, a citizen, not currently in prison for a felony, and not under any sort of like mental capacity receivership type of situation. As long as you're 18, a citizen, and not in prison for a felony, you can vote.
And doesn't the Registrar of Voters have a program where they try to at least educate 17-year-olds that?
Yeah. This week, it's currently the last week of September. The last 2 weeks of September is high school voter education weeks in California. So we've had community outreach teams out in high schools or making presentations to classes online to high school students about to get them interested in registering to vote. 16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register in the election system, and then once they turn 18, it'll automatically switch their registration to active once they turn 18.
And they'll get a ballot?
If they're going to be 18 by Election Day, they will get a ballot.
And you have ballots from people overseas who live in
Yes.
Orange County.
Yeah, so overseas and military voters, we were required to issue those ballots starting 60 days to 45 days. So the last day for us to get those out was this past Saturday. And I don't know the exact number, but I want to say we had about maybe 7,000 or 8,000 ballots that we sent out that we issued. We can either email them or mail them. And so we got those out to overseas voters in the last couple weeks.
How do you believe our elections compared to other elections in other states?
I'm not completely familiar with all the other states in terms of how they conduct their elections, but based on what I've seen now working in 2 counties in California, I'm very impressed with the professionalism of elections officials and the offices, how much the staff care about conducting a fair and accurate election. And I appreciate that the state of California puts a priority on making sure that everybody has access to vote, and that they have different ways of getting their ballot in, whether they need assistance by having an accessible marking device or having a remote accessible voting program that they can use at home to mark a ballot and mail it in. There's a lot of different options for people to make sure that they can exercise that right to vote.
And again, explain how people can learn to track their vote.
Yeah, so again, in Orange County, we have a service called OC Ballot Express. So if you go to our website, OCvote.gov, and specifically then do / the word track, TRACK, you can sign up with OC Ballot Express to get email or text notifications regarding when we're going to mail your ballot out. You'll get a notification, like if you mail it back to us through the Postal Service, you'll get a message that the Postal Service is about to deliver it to us. When we receive it and then start to process it, once we've gotten it into the process, you'll get a message from us that your ballot has been received by our office. And then once we accept your ballot for counting, you'll get a message as well.
How soon do you think we'll get the results after November 8th?
As I said, we will continue to every day after November 8th to post results in the afternoon, let people know how many ballots are still left to process. The law provides us 30 days. I don't expect we're going to need the full 30 days, but I'm not willing to make a prediction. There's a little bit of difference between this election and the last one. This election's got Thanksgiving in the middle of that 30-day period, so that's going to have some impact on potentially when we finish up. But I know we'll be done well ahead of the 30 days. I just can't give you an exact date.
And they can get more information at OCvotegov, correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Orange County Registrar of Voters Bob Page, for being on Impact OC. And I thank everyone for tuning in. I'm OC Talk Radio Public Affairs Director Don Camber. Have an impactful day.
You've been listening to Impact OC, the only program showcasing the people and organizations shaping our community. Right here on Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio.